started off the week waving your diamond wand with diamond dust. Are you still doing the same today?
I am actually, and still the same. And what it promises is also still the same. So let me just go over this sameness that I'm referring to. Diamond Trust Bank. This is what they are saying. We have a mortgage plan that can meet your needs and can suit the size and the ability of your pocket. There are people who want to buy houses. There are people who want to live in a dwelling that they call their own. And many think it's beyond their reach. Diamond Trust is saying it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
You only need to come to us to talk to us physically. If you come to any of our branches or send us an email at mortgages at dtbafrica.com, or better still, listen to CT Muga as he explains to you what it is that you need to consider. Loans for buying houses, what we refer to as mortgages, can be gotten at 9% if you wish to take a mortgage for 10 years. If you wish to take a mortgage for 25 years, you are able to get it at 9.75%. Remember, these are single-digit mortgages, 9.5%. It doesn't matter whether you are employed, whether you are self-employed, and whether you are in the diaspora. You can access a loan of up to 105% if you're employed. If you're in the diaspora, you can access a mortgage of up to 80%. Now, it doesn't end there. This is where you hold your breath and you listen keenly.
Here we go.
There are no hidden charges.
Okay.
If you have a schedule of payment and you pay ahead of the schedule, there are no penalties. Okay? If you want to confirm all this, let's go back to what I mentioned at the beginning.
Yes.
Either talk directly to Diamond Trust branch by visiting physically any branch to inquire, or just send an email, mortgages@dtbafrica.com.
Good stuff.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Tuji Ajiri, it's under the KCB Foundation, and they said, you know what? We see the folks who get into the job market or into the business market every year who don't have the skills that they need to be able to make the connect. So we're going to step in and say, okay, let's link you to training programs and in different places around the country. And let's make sure that you can actually get the skills that you require to get the job done. So whether it is in the field of masonry, whether it is engineering, automotive engineering, whether it's beauty and design, whether it's the culinary arts, whatever the case may be, you take a 6-month course, you get out of the 6-month course, the program still holds your hand and says, okay, what can we do next? Can we fix you in with a job? Can we help you start a business? Can we connect you with the much needed credit for starting a business? Let's go ahead and do that. So the 2JG program has been helping young people in different cohorts and has trained over 155,000 young people so far. And they want to do it some more. Between the ages of 18 to 35, you can actually come in, get this much needed skills training, and then move on to a job or into a business. You can get it to it as well. Find out more information, www.kcbgroup.com/foundation. All right. We're getting into our conversation for this hour. And even as we do, our guest is already seated. The national chairman of the National Council of Churches of Kenya is Reverend Dr. Elias Otieno Agola, and he's our guest this hour. Reverend Agola, good morning.
Good morning, Do. How are you?
Doing
very good. I'm okay.
Good.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Still strong in the service. Asante sana.
Asante sana. We're having a conversation this morning about the role of the church in agenda setting, an agenda setting for country, an agenda setting for government, and not just setting the agenda, but living out that agenda. And that's the conversation that we have this morning. Before we get into that conversation proper, CT, as you know, goes to a different African country every week. Don't ask us how. He has his ways. You heard he even has a magic wand that he uses for spreading diamond dust. So going to every different African countries every week is not a big deal for him. The good thing about what he does when he comes back is that he comes back with a basket full of proverbs from each country. And this week he'll tell you where we are, and he'll share that proverb, and then you can tell us how you would interpret it and what you think of that.
It's okay.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
Our proverbs for this week come from the Republic of Mali.
Mm.
Yes. It is the 8th largest country in West Africa by land mass. Previously, a huge and very, very progressive kingdom, a center of learning, and a center for the Islamic faith that was based in Timbuktu. That's a story for another day. The proverb. God gives nothing to those who keep their arms crossed.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, that's it. That's how I would interpret it.
God gives nothing to those who keep their arms crossed. It's a wonderful proverb, eh? The story of creation and the instructions that were given during creation. When God had finished creating, he was able to look and assess all that he has created. And day 1, he says, good. Day 2, good. Day 3, good. Day 6, he said, very good. And that which God created and said, it is very good, he ended up instructing humanity to work and to take care of everything that he has created. And it is from work, and work here is knowing your purpose. Work here is doing that which you know you are created for. And work here is also exploiting your potential and doing something that can place even food on your table. So God gives nothing to those who cross their hands. Simply says, God says, work and do that which you are supposed to do, serving God's purpose in your generation. Thank you.
Asante sana. I mean, we have a reverend here, so we would not expect that it would go different from that.
No. He has put it well.
Very well.
Yeah.
And he's even given a background to it.
Exactly.
It makes sense. Perfect sense.
It does.
And brought in the generational, perspective.
The National Council of Churches of Kenya, we know, is a body that puts, brings together Protestant churches as well as Christian organizations, and also looking into service, looking into advocacy, as well as essentially making sure that the citizens of the country are, brought together in proper light. The church has also, and the representatives, the representative body. But we've seen the church, also with the NCCK, in the last couple of months, be very vocal about how the affairs of the country are being run. And has been very vocal on matters corruption, has been vocal on matters protests, whereby they say, you know what, look, allow Kenyans to be able to say what it is that they need to say on matters the economy. And then very clear and direct messages to the person of the president when it comes to how this country should be led. So it is clear that religious organizations, in this case, as we discussed, the church, have a direct role in as far as governance is concerned. Now, how have we seen that role play out vis-a-vis the current situation in the country and how things have been over the last few months?
Thank you, Andu. The National Council of Churches, as you have rightly put it, the NCCK, is not just one of the oldest, but the oldest religious coordinating body in Kenya, and also among the first in the world, older than even the World Council of Churches of Kenya. And that means that the National Council of Churches of Kenya, having been around so many years, has a role to play and knows what we are supposed to do, when and how. In the past, we've been addressing, we have not silenced our voices and still continue to say that nobody can silence the voice of the church, not just NCCK, but the entire church, because church is an older institution created by only the Creator, who is God. And so every time we speak to power, or we speak to other leaders, be it in the church, be it in corporate world, we are doing our work. We are doing that which we were formed to do, to speak truth to power, to know that truth, and to guide using that truth. When we talk about knowing the truth, we are saying it is our mandate to teach the citizenry on what they need to know and how they need to do whatever they need to know. And so is placing on the table to the people what they are supposed to do and helping them to understand that if they don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. This takes me back to the preamble of our Constitution that says, we the people, meaning the country belongs to the people. It is the people that are the owners of the country. And in fact, if there is anybody who is supposed to be called excellency, it is supposed to be the citizens of Kenya. It's supposed to be the people of Kenya, because they are the owners of the work. When you walk into an institution, even this one, who is the topmost person is the owner. So the owner who is holding brief on behalf of God are the people of Kenya. So the church has always spoken on behalf of the people of Kenya and directing the agenda to the people who are supposed to act and show them by reminding them, because they are supposed to have known, and in fact they know that the people are watching, and the people see what the leaders who are given that opportunity as a delegated role to do and to deliver. So be it in the church, the people who have given us the opportunity to serve, they are watching. Be it in the country, the people are watching. Everywhere we go, the people who have given you that opportunity, they are watching. Even now we are here, those who have granted you the opportunity to lead these discussions, they are watching.
Indeed.
So there is that which they expect. And us as the church, being closer to the people, we hear what people say on a daily basis. And when we hear what they are saying, we are just echoing what they are saying. And therefore we are doing our role. I talked of we need to know the truth, which we always know, and we need to live that truth, which we do to our ability and our expectations, and we need to speak the truth. And the areas where we speak the truth, we will explore them in this show. Thank you.
All right, let me just pick it from there, Reverend. The Kenya's 2010 Constitution, I believe, speaks to, or rather provides for separation of church and the state. And I want to understand, or pick on your understanding on that, because then you're saying you're close to the people. And of course, like any other administration, they want to know what the ground is saying. But where do you draw the line, really? The separation between the church and the state and how you understand it constitutionally. Perhaps if you could shed light from your perspective.
When the Constitution says that there is a separation between the church and
the state,
it only refers to some roles.
Okay.
But when it comes to the real leadership, the real engagement with the people, you cannot separate that.
Which roles? Which are your roles?
For example, our key role in the society is to talk about the morality of the society, to call people to order, and to tell people that there is that which may be going wrong, and we are watching, we are seeing it. And when we go wrong, we can also point it out to ourselves.
All right.
And say, here, we are not doing it right. So that role of ensuring that things are done in the right way, and ensuring that those who are given the responsibilities to serve the country, serve the country, and not themselves. That is the key role that we have as the religious institution.
All right.
To call people back to the order that they are supposed to follow as the people created by God in His image, so that we speak to issues of politics and say, yes, you are holding the political leadership, but you need to define what politics is. Politics in Greek is from the word politikos, which is to do with the policies in a particular area or village, the policies of the village.
Okay.
So you cannot say that since you bear the name politician, whoever is a leader and does not bear that name should not talk about politics.
Okay.
It is the role of the church to point out when things go wrong, because we are part and parcel of the governance of this country.
Can you talk a little bit about the ecumenical duties that the NCCK has, so that our listeners can actually understand? Because one hears of National Christian Council of Kenya, but those functions may not be clear to others.
We have what is called religious coordinating bodies.
Yes.
And in the Muslim, they have theirs. In fact, they have two. They have the Namlef, they have the Supkem. When you come to Christianity, we have about 5 that are recognized. But these 5, the one with the majority and the oldest is NCCK. In other words, we also have the EAK, Evangelical Alliance of Kenya.
Yes.
We also have the KCCB, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. Then we also have the SDA Secretariat. At the same time, we have the OAIC, the Organization of African Instituted Churches. But the one that has the most number of denominations and the oldest and the missionary rooted denominations is NCCK. Our major work is to help the unity of the Christian church. In fact, let me go back and say that ecumenism is to say that we are from a particular religion and we profess the same faith. We may have other ways of expressing that faith, but there are fundamental doctrines that guide the Christian faith, and all of us subscribe to that. Every doctrine that talks about the supremacy of the Word of God and the faith that we profess, that one brings us together. So the National Council of Churches of Kenya is the body that brings together all the Christian religious organizations, and we have a number that is close to 17 million Kenyans that are members of the NCCK. So we coordinate them. We speak on behalf of these institutions, especially when we gather their leadership, and we want to speak to a certain thing. Then all their leadership, the top leadership of these churches, including Anglican, Presbyterian, Methodist, and the likes, we come together. We say this is what we would want to address because this is what is happening. And when we also hear another religious coordinating body have also spoken the same thing that we are speaking, or we had them speak first, we add our voices to what they are saying. So there is no day we will contradict what the Catholics are saying. There is no day we will also contradict what the others are saying, especially those who are properly and formally constituted. But we have some that are not properly constituted. Just like in any area, you may also have people who are not properly constituted. Like here in the media, you have people who call themselves media, but they don't subscribe to the tenets of the media fraternity.
Indeed.
Yes.
So I think that's a great jumping platform into now one of the big issues that has always come through. That when we look at agenda setting, the question coming directly to the front doorstep of the church is, why is there constantly acceptance of politicians who choose to use the platform of the church to essentially sanitize whatever actions they may take or whatever actions they plan to take? And there has been historic acceptance of this by the church over and over again. And it looks as though that hasn't stopped. That churches can be used as stomping grounds by politicians to set a particular agenda, and that we don't hear a comeback from the church about that. We've heard in some instances whereby, they've said you will not use the pulpit to come and set your agenda. You will not use the church to sanitize by giving money. But it doesn't seem to be a blanket across the board unified position that the church has taken, as opposed to what you've said about how one body will never go against what another body within the NCCK is saying. But it seems to be different in practice. Why?
Well, I believe you may be having examples which you would want to cite.
Absolutely.
But,
a few months ago,
yeah.
the Catholic Church came out very clearly and said, we are not going to continue to take these donations. In fact, there was one very special case of when one said, come and take the donation that you had given here at the church directly to the president, not anybody else. Take this money that you've given back. But it seems as though the next weekend there can be a funeral and somebody else is speaking at a funeral and decides we're going to make this funeral service into a pontification of politics, and then at the same time we can give something to the church and there's an acceptance of the same. Where are we?
And just to add, aren't they always in churches every Sunday? No wonder we have some news coming up every Monday, because every Sunday there is a politician in a particular church. There are flyers out there for them, and they're on those, particular platforms and dioceses actually speaking politics in the church, in as recent as last Sunday.
Yeah. You want to continue?
No. I am marveling because that we, the media, have been very willing allies in everything that we are saying.
Yes.
It's because we are the ones who give prominence to politicians. We are the ones who give prominence to the things they do. And I've always wondered, do we give the religious organizations the same attention and the same presence? And I have wondered myself, and I am in the media.
Good. Great. I am happy that you have become a good Christian.
This morning.
We can make you we can make you a religious leader.
Right.
So that at least you also, but you have to follow a process. Very good questions. I've just told you that religious coordinating bodies exist to call religious leaders to order, to help them manage everything that is at their disposal, and especially the places of worship. There comes a time when we also need to understand that politicians are also members of our churches. The bad thing that may have happened and continues to happen in some churches, I would say some churches, is that when they come for worship, we put them as centers of worship at the same time. That we condemn, because when a politician comes to church, or let me give an example, even me, when I go to a church and somebody notices I am there, there is a tendency of thinking that they would bring me to the front. Sometimes I say no, because I just went there as a worshipper. I didn't go there in my position as the chairman of NCCK. I didn't go there in my position as the one who is the director of Justice, Peace, Reconciliation and Creation Department in PCA. I went there as a worshipper,
right,
and I should be treated as such. But we see some people go overboard and admit the politicians even to the front to talk. And there is where they may not tame their tongues and say whatever they want to say. But I would want to say that those are exceptionals. I want to concur with my friend here that sometimes the media also does, you do things that sometimes don't align well, because when you are looking for news, I believe when I talk about some things from the Word of God and expound that in a sermon, it should also be taken.
It should also be taken as part of the news.
As part of the news. That a minister so and so, a preacher so and so said 1, 2, 3, and that should be taken as part of the news. You referred to Sunday. Sunday is just the other day, and what happened in Mombasa? A very respected bishop, Wilfred Lai, preached a very powerful sermon. I watched that sermon for a whole hour, and it was a powerful sermon. Was it even, did it even have a news bite? Was there anything that could be picked by media to air? Had it not been for the social media that exposed what he said, and again in their own context, they would say whatever they wanted, the sermon to mean. But there are always something that we speak from the pulpit. It should also be captured. On the same clip, we should say the pastor said this, but the politician also said this. But I know news is news when you bite a dog.
Look, I mean, when you bite a dog, that's for the news, absolutely. Look, I mean, I don't think we can shirk away from that responsibility, especially here where we keep saying that, religious organizations, and here we're talking about the church in particular, have a role to play in agenda setting, have a role to play in governance. Sure, then it behoves us who report on the news to then be able to say what is actually being said in those circles. Unfortunately, most times, it's the other side that gets most of the story. I'm very clear in my mind about when former provost of the Anglican Church, one Sammy Wainaina, spoke in church on a Sunday morning, and the politicians who had come to church and they wanted to do all this fanfare, and he stood on the pulpit and he said, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen. You've come and worship like anybody else, and if you have something to say, you may go outside after the service and have your little meeting with whomever you need to, but do not do this here. Also took the opportunity in that service to talk about certain things that he saw going wrong. Now, it made the news on that particular day because of what he had said before that. But are we saying now at this point that news men and women can actually come into church every Sunday and get the message that is being given to the nation? Is that something that should be or can be regular? Because it is the platform that you have. Media have this platform. The church has that platform of the pulpit every Sunday or every Saturday. Should that be the place where the news comes from?
That should be the place where the news comes from, and we always have news. But news has to be reported to become news. Otherwise, it remains with the people that you have talked to, and you only expect them to behave towards what you have said. Having said that, it is clear that whenever religious leaders talk, and especially the genuine religious leaders, I would say genuine, because there are some religious leaders who would want to follow politicians, maybe for their own personal gain, not for the gain of the kingdom of God. But those who stand with the truth, you have just mentioned Canon Wainaina. I would also mention my colleague, Bishop Muheria. Bishop Muheria talked the other day.
Yes.
And when he talked the other day, you can imagine what was reported after from the politicians, when some of them even said they don't want to go to church. Yes, church, all people who come to church come on voluntary basis.
Right.
And even when they come to church, some of the people who say they don't want to go to church are the same people who, when they come to church, they are not coming to worship. They are coming to set an agenda. To set the agenda, to talk the agenda, and they even end up abusing one another in the church.
Indeed.
So we would rather not have them in church if they are coming to abuse people in church. But we will always speak the truth to power. We'll speak the truth to our colleague leaders in whatever sector. And we will say that Kenya is not a place where you just come and even talk a vulgar language and you are a leader.
Exactly.
You know what just happened the other days in these rallies, where some people would call others stupid, foolish, what, and all that. It's not so good. What are we passing on to these generations that are below us?
Good questions.
Are we like telling them that we can use unacceptable language, and then we call them back to order and tell them you have to behave well? I believe that the churches that are under NCCK and those that are under the formal religious coordinating bodies, they know how to behave and they know how to handle issues in a more morally accepted way. Yeah.
The Reverend Dr. Elias Otieno Agola is our guest this hour, and we are he is the chairman of the National Council of Churches of Kenya, and we're looking into the role of the church in agenda setting for the nation. We're going to come back and look at some specifics coming in from this break. It's 23 minutes to 8.
This is Maisha Asubuhi, na kama ilivyo desturi naitwa Solomon Zuli. Moja inakuaga moja.
Yeah.
Mbili inakuaga ni twins.
Yes.
Lakini tatu kwa Kiswahili tunahitaji. Tunasema ni tatu sure.
Sugar boy, sugar boys, and the cute boy, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm failing the one.
Introducing.
Mpigo tena zaidi finally wane.
Finally.
Nimezama ndani ya stesheni nambari 1. Tuko mbele pamoja. Tatu shua zaidi. Nitamani Mandrio kipenda niteji baba.
Karibu sana Nairobi, lakini mimi nitakupatia memo ya Nairobi. Watoto wazuri Nairobi. Lazima uwe makini.
Hapo archives hapo. Ulipoingia tu.
Hapo tutamuintroduce kwa kamba ndugu zangu.
Monday to Friday, each and every week, itakuwa ni tatu shua kama unavyotuona hapa. Sugar boy, sugar weasel, main man Rio, Solomon Jeffazuli. Hii ni
tatu shua zaidi.
Uspime.
Piga statue. Inua mkono alafu cheza na mguu. Piga statue. Anguka na one leg, anguka na
DJ Tatua.
Kushuka zinapandisha juu, piga kale kama kuja mkufu ati nikikubamba gonga tena toka
Dad is a physicist, and now he's a quantum physicist. He taught for quite some time, and then he transitioned into the health field. So now he's also a medical expert, but more to do with behavioral sciences.
Dad is like, he's a genius per se. You moved in faith. What triggered that, and how important is it for any entrepreneur watching this, once you have an idea, to literally move in faith?
When you have an idea, even if it's come to you and it's in your mind, and your mind is a spirit, basically, someone can come and run away with it.
True.
If you sit down with it. Even if it's in the backdrop, every day or every week, revisit it and fine-tune it without being too much of a second guess.
Awings Kodek going out then towards Gitanga Road. So that's business on its own. Also taking a look at coming off of the Eastern Bypass. There is traffic there touching on Outer Ring coming in towards North Airport Road, and a little bit of traffic that's forming right around the ICD, trying to find its way towards Mombasa Road. So that's busy this morning as well. We are in traffic hour. Let's see how we traverse it this morning and talk and keep things moving on Spice FM KE on X hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The Reverend Dr. Elias Otieno Agola is the chairman of the National Council of Churches of Kenya. We're having an agenda-setting conversation, as we normally do here on the Situation Room, and asking questions about, all right, so where is the role of the church square right where it should be at the moment and doing what it ought to do? In terms of expectations of Kenyans, is it filling that role of expectation?
Yes. The role of the church, as I've said, is to look at what happens in the country and ensures that we have a timely response in terms of guiding, in terms of adding our voice to what is going on, and in terms of ensuring that things go well. I may mention a few, that one of our roles is to ensure that we talk about moral and ethical guidance. Mm-hmm. Moral and ethical guidance, where the church provides that moral and ethical guidance, and the church becomes an example of the same. And where we see that there is a decay, we have to raise our voice and say something is wrong. And we come up again and help the people of Kenya to align to the moral expectations that are required of them. We are also here to advocate for social justice. Mm-hmm. Every time that we see the issues that are derailing social justice, the issues of inclusion, talking to the marginalized, the poor, the women, the youth, we have to raise our voice to that. So where somebody sees you to be an enemy just because you have spoken your mind and you have raised your voice, then that should not be allowed to go without a say.
And it needs to be clear, doesn't it? And
Yes.
I'm going to just point towards the statement that we heard come from Archbishop Muheria just a few days ago, where he was not confused in what he said.
No.
He went to the point and went to the point straight, because sitting in a place of leadership in the church, he's come out and said, look, if we're going to talk about social justice, these are some of the things that we're talking about. He said, first of all, the government has made certain promises in the run-up to an election, which they have not kept. Their pledges that they've made, they have not kept. Their promises that they've made, they have not kept. And he said, this needs to stop, because now what you're doing is that you're likening yourself to an advertising agency and not fulfilling on the promise of the advertisement. He also went on to say certain things about a health system, Taifa Care, that is not working. And he said, look, we can see the ills in society. We can see the things that you said you were going to do. SHA, for example, is not working, and it's not functioning in the manner in which you told Kenyans that it was going to function in. He also went on to talk about the fact that you have so many projects that you've started as government, but you have not implemented them. What is the problem? We have issues of corruption. Monies are being taken. Monies are being lost. We see justice not being seen from end to end. He was very clear about some of these things. It was not jumbled up. It was not confusing. He said what he said, and it was very clear. Many would argue that that's the kind of voice that you need to be raised not once a month, but every day.
Every day. So again, I would put it this way, that Muheria, Archbishop, talks again on his own behalf as Kenyan, on behalf of his archdiocese, and on behalf of the Catholic Church. In our NCCK church, we have these same voices every Sunday. the moderator of the General Assembly of PCA, talks about these things every Sunday. Wherever I am, I talk about these things every Sunday. We have Archbishop Olesapit, the bishop of the Anglican Church, and we have the presiding bishop of Methodist, Right Reverend Deye. We talk about these things every Sunday, but when it is not exposed the way Archbishop Muherias was exposed, then again it remains with the people who heard them. But we are saying that we are not quiet. The church has always been speaking these issues, and even here on this show, allow me to add my voice and say, we are tired of these advertisement agencies from the government, where advertisement appeals to the feelings of the people. It is one of, when you see it, then it talks to you there and and you think it is going to be done the other minute. So what are we saying? You have promised so many things. Where is the result? And if you have a good plan, where is the communication on that plan? On this show again, I said that we are tired of talking. Let us see the work. And if it is SHA, how would people be dying and you say SHA is working? How would people be dying? How would the university students miss exams and you say everything is working? How would education suffer and you say everything is working? We always say these things because it is something that our children need to get, something that our patients need to get, and something that we have to always talk about it. And we add our voice to what Archbishop Muheria said, that we are tired of being shown rosy pictures of what is supposed to be done. We would want to see action. And that is one of the agenda that we set. Then in the political engagement, you cannot tell us that we stick to the pulpit. When we stick to the pulpit, we'll say things from the pulpit. But when we hear counterattacks from people who don't even know a lot about what we talk from the pulpit, then it is like somebody has sent them to talk to the church ruthlessly. And that cannot be tolerated. Because a country where people don't respect their religious leaders, and especially when they point out to the things that even you know are not going well, then that country is heading to the drain, which is not very good.
Allow me to interject, because you mentioned the political aspect,
Yeah.
and I want to give you the reality of what Kenyans are saying,
Yeah.
especially after the 2022 elections, let alone the Jubilee elections. That is when Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto were a pair. And looking progressive, let's just go back a bit in hindsight. When Jomo Kenyatta was in power, it wasn't so obvious for him in as far as religion and the state was concerned. Moi era as well, it becomes more pronounced with the Uhuru Kenyatta's era and now Ruto's era. And someone would just ask, perhaps if I just give a bit of statistics in the religious line, according to the 2019 population census, the Kenya government estimated that approximately 85.5% of the total population is Christian. All right, that is, I'm just giving that 85.5%.
Yes.
Now, if you, and I know you hear these things, especially during the Gen Z protests, they said, could the churches please stop entertaining what you also agree with looks like an advertisement agency? And you do realize that the confidence that your congregants had in you, a little bit, it's gone down, in as far as that mix between the state and the church is concerned. I'm thinking, would you rather the church speaks truth to power, but refrain and restrain from looking like they are active in campaigning periods, right? Because what happened this time is the church came out so strongly, like it's campaigning, is it, for Kenya Kwanza? And after things went south, the citizens called you out and said, don't call them out, you ordained them, you made them look good, you made us vote for them. And I don't know how you'd clarify this kind of beliefs by the citizens, that you're part of the campaigning, you endorse these people, you make them vote for them, you align them in that voting pattern, and then you come out to say this is wrong, you lied to Kenyans. Would it be easier if the church would be silent more during the campaigning period and maybe help in calling out when the social injustices happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I would want to say that, yes, there are some churches that are aligned to that kind of a campaign. But not all churches were aligned to that campaign.
But the ones that were there were also churches?
That's true.
Okay.
And that's why I've said it is some churches
Okay.
that were aligned to that campaign. But we cannot say that the church was aligned to that campaign. Because when you say the church was aligned to that campaign all over the country, yeah, there are some regions where the Kenya Kwanza was not a popular candidate, but were there churches there? So when you say the church did it, it's good to say, yes, some churches were aligned to that, but
churches.
not all churches. So it is wrong to put all the churches in that blanket and say that, yes, all the churches campaigned for this. Well, it sounds a bit better, a bit good, but it's not good at all.
Let's go with the some churches.
Yes,
now, those churches that were involved.
Yes, those churches that were involved. Maybe they have their own convictions, but the truth of the matter is that it is wrong for churches to align themselves to a particular candidate because there is the after the elections. Somebody will lose, another one will win. Or your candidate may win, but when they get over to the other side, they become a completely different person. And that is the scenario in Kenya today. So we would not want to urge churches to align themselves with particular political interest or campaign for any particular candidate.
Yeah.
But we should speak the truth and remain at that level.
Reference is made to times in history where it was very clear about particular church leaders who would essentially lay their lives down to insist that a certain moral compass is followed. If we come towards today and the things that we see, yes, we do see. I mean, we have to say it when we do that. We do see more that is coming from the church. We do see a lot that's coming from the church. Do you think it is necessary to remove church leaders from their platforms for these cases specifically? And I explain what I mean. That Sunday sermons will continue. That's it, as they should. But do you think it's necessary for church leaders to come out off of the pulpit, whether it is during meetings, whether it is calling press conferences on a regular, whether it is talking to people outside of the congregation about some of these agenda-setting issues that we're talking about? Is that necessary, or is the pulpit sufficient? Is enough being done?
The pulpit has not been sufficient, and it is true that a lot needs to be done and should be done. But I would also say that in NCCK, for example, we engage with people outside the pulpit in their regions. That's why you sometimes see us on your bulletins when we have talked. The same thing that we raise in Nairobi is also raised in Nairobi, in Mombasa, and in other parts. We have 9 regions as NCCK, and in every county we have a county coordinating committee. For NCCK, we talk the same thing. When we raise that at the national level, then you find the same thing being raised in the region and in the counties. But again, in our local churches. So not only from the pulpit will we be talking about these issues, or have we been talking about these issues. We raise them in our regions and in our grassroots. So you are right when you say the pulpit is not sufficient, because the pulpit is only for that Sunday. How about the daily life? Again, we have programs, governance programs, civic education programs, where we raise the issues of governance and the issues of political involvement. And in our regions, everything is moving on and people are being enlightened. when the IEBC, for example, is not in place, I mean the commissioners, we have explained to people the process, how it is starting, how it will end, and so on and so forth. And we have started our voter and civic education so that people understand what their civic duty is, and this we do on a daily basis.
You know, whatever the church is doing now, whatever the religious leaders are doing now, must be lauded.
Yeah.
There was a time the church went to sleep. I say they're asleep because this is one of the beautiful things about being alive for a long time. Because I remember a time, yes, when the first president of this country was president, we had the people who would stand up and speak boldly were not just politicians, they were religious leaders, boldly. During the term of the second president of the country, again, boldly, people stood up and spoke. Then somehow it's like the church went quiet. It looks like when things seem to be okay economically in the country, the voice of the church seems to go quiet. It isn't as loud as it should be, because the problems we're now facing did not begin with this government.
Right.
No. It didn't. It began earlier. What you're seeing is a culmination of many things that have been wrong for a while. But the position that has now been taken is a good one. Many a time when the church or the religious leaders speak out, they are considered to be adversarial. And yet, when they explain, they say they are being corrective, and that is their role. How do you get the political class who are members of these religious organizations and churches to understand that when someone disagrees with you, they are not seeking to be your enemy. They are simply explaining to you something that you've done wrong.
Yeah, that's true. The church, as you say, has been in the picture. And when things go wrong, we talk about them. Before they go wrong, we also have a pointer and say, look, if we go this direction, this is where we may end. I know you are referring to the likes of Njoya is still alive, the likes of Gitari, the likes of Okulu. These are bishops, and the late Muge, who are among others, the Ndingi Mwana Nzekis. We are that group today. And talking, we will talk about these issues. Raising them, we will raise them. And we have always been raising them. And we are prepared to meet the other group that feels that we are overstepping. But we will always say, here we are. We represent the church. We represent Kenyans. And we are the voice that is needed.
Indeed.
So when we raise our voices, we are not adversarial. We are not enemies to anybody. Correct what we are saying. We will not have any issue to talk about. In fact, we will turn and say, look, we talked about this, and here it is.
What would you say to government today?
We give credit to where we will say to the government that we give credit where it is supposed to be. If the government has done well, we will say you have performed. If the government has not performed, we'll say you have not performed. If the government is not making things clear, we'll say make things clear. Like, for example, the issue of SHA, the issue of affordable housing. It is a good idea. Very nice to have that vision of every Kenya having, a shelter, like in other developed countries.
But
It's a good idea. But communicate this to the people. Let the people know what it is. Let's not see the billboards. And that's why you hear one of us is saying it is like advertising.
Yeah.
Show us what this work is
that you're doing,
and we will support.
We want to thank you very much, the Reverend Dr. Elias Otieno Agola, who is the chairman of the National Council of Churches of Kenya, has been our guest this hour. And even as you go, Reverend, want to thank you for being here. But CT has some yogurt for you from Delamere. And Delamere wants you to take a moment, as you have talked about this morning, take a moment and have a moment where you have real fruit in yogurt, even at the many things that we have to think about, and as we continue to set the agenda, have an moment with Delamere. With real fruit and the strawberry that he has given you this morning, by the way.
Wow. I think Delamere is doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Delamere knows, somebody should.
They've seen you. Delamere knows what they're doing.
Delamere should know that, some people have not taken breakfast.
And that's their plan exactly. Your breakfast on the go. Thank you for being here this morning.
And thank you for our viewers. May God bless you. Amen. It was wonderful being with you.
Thank you so much.
The church is still there.
Good morning.
Let the church be the church.